That sound might as well replace the chapel's bells. The Duke endowment shot up 56% this year. Who's behind the endowment? Why did it go up? And what does that mean for Duke? I'm Jake Sheridan, and you're listening to Duke Week, the Chronicle's weekly news podcast. Today, we're going to hear from Duke Vice President of Administration Cavanaugh. He's helped to lead the university's response to COVID and is going to talk about how things have gone this semester and what restrictions might be going away soon. We'll also hear from Chronicle reporter Ayra Charania. She'll tell us what she heard at a candidates forum for the Durham municipal election that'll take place on November 2nd. But first, let's talk with reporter Gautam Sirdeshmukh to take a look at the Duke endowment. Hey Gautam, how's it going?
Hello Jake.
So, the endowment was down bad when the stock market took a hit at the beginning of the pandemic. What's happened now?
So a lot of it is related to stock markets. So of course, during the pandemic, a lot of things were down, and that was reflected in the endowment. Just since 2020, business has kind of been booming, or at least it's way back up. So the endowment's back up too. For those who don't really understand, how does the endowment work? How is it growing and getting smaller? It's not just people are donating more. That's not how it goes. The endowment, it's managed by DUMAC, D-U-M-A-C. Pretty much what they do is a portion of the endowment each year is used for different university needs. So a lot of it goes to supporting financial aid or different faculty positions, things like that. But then the rest of the money, it's invested in a really wide range of assets. There's real estate, private equity in companies, all kinds of things, just, prevent risk of loss, things like that. And DUMAC, they do all of that. So they're making those decisions. This year, it was a huge return, 56%. So across the entire portfolio, the endowment saw a 56% gain, which is a huge one-year return. But it does make sense since, during the pandemic, things took a little bit of a hit.
So when things did take a hit, Duke instituted some austerity measures. Are those still around? Are they all going to go away now?
I'm not entirely sure. I know that they're still very cautious right now, just in terms of not losing money, not making sure, because Duke isn't, they're operating at a much higher capacity now than they were during COVID. They can have different events, they can bring people to campus, have games. There's a lot more money coming in, but there's definitely still new kind of precautionary measures that came up during the pandemic, just in terms of managing the assets. And I think some of it will stick around.
So what will this 56% return allow Duke to do?
The money's used for a lot of different needs. Financial aid is a huge part of it because so many kids receive need-based financial aid each year, and it's a lot. Just a lot of money. Different faculty positions, some professors in different roles. The money doesn't all come from the same place. So some of it, the endowment's used for that. But the largest portion, nearly a third of the endowed funds that are being used for different purposes are just given for unrestricted access by the university. So that's just the blanket statement. Pretty much, I guess they can use it for whatever needs they have, and they won't have to go through the whole purpose of, breaking it down to this is where the money's going, this is where the money's going, because there's so many things that come up. So it's just kind of unrestricted access. It's almost like the biggest rainy day fund in the world. You don't want to dip into the endowment. You just want to keep that thing growing. But things come up, you need more money, and that's why it's there.
Well, thanks for all this info on the endowment, Gautam.
Thank you for having me, Jake.
COVID cases are way down here at Duke. Only 11 students and 3 faculty members tested positive last week. The numbers have trended down and stayed low since the outbreak we saw early in the semester. To talk about that trend and what it might mean for students, we have Duke Vice President of Administration Cavanaugh. Hey, Vice President Cavanaugh, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be with you, and especially so early in the morning.
How do you think that Duke is doing with COVID?
I think as a community, we're doing incredibly well. As you stated, we had a bump in the fourth week, and we did make some adjustments there. And ever since that time, the numbers have been quite low and very manageable.
So how has Duke gotten to this point?
I think it's a combination of things. First and foremost, I think it's the commitment that our students, our faculty, and our staff have demonstrated in terms of keeping themselves and keeping each other safe. So the combination of masking, the combination of the high level of vaccination in our population across both our students and our workforce, and certainly our testing program, which has allowed us to identify the small numbers that we've had over the last couple of weeks, and to pull those out of the population, to isolate them and not to allow for that to grow. So I think it's a collection of those strategies and behaviors.
So how does Duke compare with Durham and North Carolina?
We have, as a community, historically run below in terms of number of cases, both the state and in Durham. Durham itself has done exceedingly well when compared to the state. The state is trending in really, really good directions. Vaccination numbers are continuing to climb. Cases are continuing to decline. And as of yesterday, the number of individuals that are hospitalized across the state of North Carolina is now under 1,800. To put that in perspective, that number was pushing 4,000. That was about 3,800 in the beginning of September. Now, it's great that the state has moved from 3,800 to 1,700, but that's still a lot of people hospitalized. And so I think we all have to remain cognizant that we're not completely out of this, even though things are improving significantly.
Winter is coming. Employees have already started getting their third shots. Maybe students will soon. How do you think things are going to go moving forward?
You're exactly right. As of last night, we're just at about 10,000 individuals that have received the booster across the workforce. You may have seen that both the FDA and then last night the CDC approved for a booster to be available for both Moderna and for J&J. So communication will be coming out from that. So we want to encourage everyone to take advantage of that. In addition, we have been very aggressive in rolling out the flu vaccination for both the student population and the workforce population. We're feeling optimistic about the next couple of weeks and the remainder of the semester. Having said that, we're keeping a very close eye on what's developing in some of the European countries and certainly in Russia, because we have followed typically on a 3-month delay these waves that have occurred in some of the other global locations. So we're watching that very carefully.
Of course, this week, Brody Gym reopened. Do you think Duke will continue to lighten up its COVID restrictions? How do you see that going?
Personally, I think it's outstanding that Brody is open. As I think you know, it's opened in the afternoon and evening, and projections are that that'll expand. And so, yes, I think as we're going through the remaining weeks in the semester, will things, if our cases remain where they are, I can imagine us loosening more and more and more.
Can you say at all what dials might come next?
Depending on what Durham does. So if those regulations get released, I can imagine us getting a little less tight on our masking indoors. I don't think by the end of the semester we'll completely abandon that, but I can imagine that that's getting looser and looser as we go on. I can imagine us getting a little less restrictive on some of our dining and those types of activities. One thing we didn't publicly announce, but you personally may have experienced that this week, is that for all of our undergraduate population, we only tested one time per week this week. We had been on a regime of doing that 2 times a week.
Thanks for talking with us, Vice President Cavanaugh.
Jake, it's my pleasure, and please take good care of yourself.
Just a warning for our listeners, the Wilson basketball courts are back open. If you see me there, do everything you can to be on my team. I'm taller than I sound, and I don't miss. Election day for Durham Mayor and 3 city council seats is next week, November 2nd, and you should go vote. When it comes to learning about the candidates, the Chronicle's got you covered. Our reporter, Ayra Charania, covered the Durham Business and Professional Chains Candidate Forum. Here's what she heard. Hi, Ayra. How's it going?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. So you went to a candidates forum for Durham's municipal election, which is on November 2nd. There's a mayoral race and 3 city council races. Who showed up at the event that you covered?
For mayoral candidates, it was just Elaine O'Neill. For Ward 1, we had Adriana Freeman and Marion T. Johnson. For Ward 2, there was Sylvester Williams. The incumbent, Mark Anthony Middleton, was not in attendance. For Ward 3, we had AJ Williams and Leonardo Williams.
So you mentioned that for the mayoral race, it was just Elaine O'Neill. Why was it just Elaine O'Neill?
So after primary results, Javiera Caballero suspended her campaign.
Gotcha. For the 3 city council races, could you walk me through how the candidates are different? What were they saying at the event that you covered?
For Ward 1, with Adriana Freeman and Marion T. Johnson, they both really had similar visions for what they want for Durham and similar plans to do them. There wasn't really much difference there. Very much focused on addressing root cause in the community and closing disparities. With Ward 2, with Sylvester Williams, he differs quite a bit from Mark Anthony. I think we quickly saw that with his homophobic response to the gay marriage question posed during the forum. Additionally, Sylvester Williams, just on the way he would like to address his vision of the community, he's very focused on his background as a financial analyst and focused on economic initiatives, actually disparaging what he called progressive reforms during the forum, versus Mark Anthony Middleton is very much focused on progressive reform, and he has emphasized a lot on police reform specifically and improved community relations.
What did he mean by progressive reform?
I think throughout the forum, he specifically meant ideas like supporting the LGBT community, just affecting relations with social groups in general and social policy. I think he's very much an economic policy centered person.
And what about Ward 3?
Both of them do have a lot of focus on, again, addressing root causes and using community development as a way to fix larger problems. Leonardo Williams, a lot of his community development is focused on economic mobility and access to opportunity, versus I think AJ Williams is a little bit more broad on also wanting to look into things like mental illness, substance addiction, a couple more things beyond like economic mobility.
What else stuck out to you as you were at the event?
A lot of discussion going into housing and thinking about Google and Apple coming in soon. That was a common contention for everyone there, is addressing the housing instability, addressing Durham's housing crisis. And there was very much similar mechanisms to do that, focused on uplifting legacy Black communities.
By the way, early voting ends on October 30th. You can find the information you need to vote on the Durham County Elections website. That's dcovotes.com. In other news, David Price, a U.S. congressman who has long represented the Triangle and parts of Durham, announced that he won't seek re-election in 2022. Price has served in Congress since 1997. The East Campus Bridge was vandalized with homophobic and anti-Black graffiti. The hateful graffiti was removed and the university condemned it in an email. You can find mental health guides made specifically for LGBTQ+ people and people of color on the Chronicle's website. And a 2020 faculty survey showed major disparities in whether certain faculty members feel like they belong and are treated fairly. The survey showed that Black female and Hispanic female faculty in particular sense minority faculty members have less opportunity than non-minority faculty. That's all for this episode of Duke Week. If you like what we're doing, please subscribe, share it with your friends, and help us get out the word that the Chronicle's got a weekly news podcast. That song you heard is Goji Berry Beat by Nana Kwabena. Thanks for listening. We'll talk again next week.